What's up everyone, Art here, and today we're releasing 3 OVERTAKE Primer cans. Now, I wanted to take this opportunity to not only showcase all of the paint match aerosols that we have that you might be familiar with, but I also want to go as far as doing a step-by-step tips, tricks, and how-to on either repainting or paint matching one of your own Subaru parts. Since these are our 3 newest aerosol cans, I want to hit on the primers first. You have a light and a dark high coverage primer. Now the light one here is made specifically for our Subaru STI Neon Yellow to really make it pop. The dark gray is going to be for pretty much everything else that we offer. Now the third can here is the gray filler primer. If you guys are doing any sort of body work or trying to do any filling on the car, that would be the way to go. So when you pick up a primer, just make sure you get the right one. Now you can see we have 17 different color match types. I'm not going to list every single one on camera here, but you guys can hop on overtakeusa.com and I'll put a link down in the description for you to check them all out. Basically, we have them for all popular Subaru models. Now the really nice thing is we didn't just go to a paint shop and have them make it off of the OEM paint color code, because that's never exactly right. What we actually did is we sourced an OEM pre-painted piece for every single one of the paints we did, and then we color matched to that. So you can see the color match swatches are as close as you could possibly get, which means when you guys get one of these cans and you want to use whether it's BBS Gold, Subaru Wilderness Copper, or something like the World Rally Blue, it's going to match as good as it possibly can. And especially when you combine it with the primers and our selection of clear coats. And we're going to talk about those a little bit later. In this video, what I really want to do is actually get my hands dirty. We have this bug eye hood hanging out. As you guys can see, it's a little worse for wear. Now you can imagine this has potentially been sitting in a driveway somewhere on a car getting dusty. You can see that the hood scoop has been repainted at some point. It's pretty ugly, kind of chipping. It has white paint all over the place. What I'd like to do is get this fully cleaned up, get the scoop off of this, and paint it with a fresh coat of World Rally Blue. We'll see how it turns out. I've painted parts for my cars. I've had them turn out great and not so good. I've learned over the years. So what I want to do is compile a couple tips and tricks for the average person, something you guys can look at and do this over 1 or 2 days. So that's why we have this kind of crappy bug eye hood that we're going to do the best we can with. Now, what I'll also do is flash up a list of the quantities of paints, primers, and clears that you would use for things like a hood scoop or a bumper, to give you guys a little bit of an idea of how much of the stuff you have to order. And what we're going to do is step 1, and what you guys should do is take whatever part off your car, let's bring it outside, give it a good wash, and then we'll start from there. First step with any project like this is to get everything washed up. We had tons of dirt and grime on our hood and scoop. So now that's gone, we just used a simple automotive soap to get that off. And then next we want to get any oils and or molds off of the actual part that we're painting, in this case, the scoop. So I'm going to remove this, and then I just picked up a heavy duty degreaser that's good with plastics in this case. We're going to wipe that down, and then we're going to start the sanding process right after that. Our Our scoop is all cleaned up and degreased, and now we can move on to the sanding portion. I've got a selection of different sandpapers. I'm gonna go with a 400 to 600 grit for this initial step, just getting the clear coat off of this part and getting it ready for primer. And you can see we do have a little bit of scratches and some pitting across this. Looks like a lot of rock chips up front. So I'm gonna do my best to sand that stuff off, make it as smooth as we can. I'll also use something like this scuff pad 800 grit to get into the surfaces that the sandpaper can't necessarily get into, like right in these grooves. And then, after we have it cleaned up, we're gonna apply one of our primers. I have the 2 darker grays, the standard and the filler primer. Once I have it sanded, I'm gonna find out how big the scratches are. If we need to use the filler primer, we will, but I'm guessing we can get away with the standard on this one. I'm gonna start with the 400 here, and really what I wanna do is just smooth, light, circular patterns across the whole object. Get it nice and even and get the imperfections out of it as best as we can. I think we're getting to a pretty good point with this scoop. You can see I've scuffed it up. I started with that 400 grit sandpaper to get some of the tougher spots out, like here and here, and all along the front where there was a lot of chipping. Now, I had to go a little deeper than I wanted to, but feeling it here, it is pretty smooth now, so I think it's gonna do well once the primer is on. Now, the next thing I wanna do is take my 800 scouring pad, just do one more quick pass, make sure everything's kind of blended in. As they say with paint, about 90% of it is the prep work, so you guys can take as much time as you want on this. I have a little bit of a limited schedule to get this done, so I'm gonna call this good enough. Some of my next steps are gonna be to wash this, get it cleaned up, let it dry, and then just apply some alcohol on here to get all of the dust and grime off that we can before we spray. Now, you guys saw the 2 primers that I mentioned. I think given that it is a pretty smooth surface, we don't need to use the filler primer, we'll just use the standard one. And one thing to mention with plastics, if you're going down to bare plastic, which most of you probably won't be, you should use an adhesion promoter before the filler. In my case, I won't need to do that. If you're doing metal and you're going down to bare metal, then a self-etching primer is something that you're gonna wanna use. So that's not one that we offer. But again, most of you guys, 99%, are not gonna be going down to bare metal and bare plastic. In our case, let's get this cleaned up and let's lay the first coat of primer on before the day's over. I got my primer and we're ready to put on the first coat now that everything is cleaned up perfectly. Now, I do have a bunch of notes when it comes to the primer, the base coat, and the clear, and I don't want to rattle them off step by step, so what I'll do is put them in the description. You guys can go reference those depending on which step you're on. Now, if you're using the standard primer, there's a little bit of a difference between that and the filler primer, but what I want to do with this one is shake it up, make sure it's nice and loose, and then we're gonna apply thin coats, waiting about 5 to 10 minutes in between each coat. Usually 2 to 3 will do the job. Basically, if you're not seeing any blue, then you've done a good job of laying the primer down. I've got our first thin coat of primer on, and this really gives the opportunity to see if there's any imperfections in here. Now, I've got a couple little lines and things. If I really wanted to, I could go back once this primer is dry, sand it out a bit, and then put some body filler or icing on it. In this case, I think it looks pretty good, especially once we put subsequent coats on it. It's gonna look great. Now, another thing to mention is temperature. You don't want to be doing this outside. Like we were washing the hood, it was about 45 degrees. In here, you want it to be at least 60 to 70, even warmer would be nice, with a low humidity. And again, we're not doing a professional job, we're doing the best we can. So we've got our heat cranked up, it's nice and dry in here. I think we're gonna end with a good result, but we're gonna need another 1 or 2 coats of primer before we put the main paint down.
"15 minutes later."
And with that third coat of primer, I think we're gonna be all good. Now we're gonna wanna wait for it to dry about 90%, and then we're gonna lay our base coat of World Rally Blue. Now, while we got the fumes around us and this is drying, I'm going to go upstairs. I'll give you a little bit of a breakdown and some tips on the base coat that we're going to put on. While that primer is drying, I wanted to show you guys the selection of our aerosol paints on OVERTAKEUSA.com. You guys can hop on here. We have a really good breakdown of all of the paint codes and colors, so you'll know exactly what you need it for. And we also have nice pictures and even videos showing things like myself and color-matched parts on a VBWRX. Look at that. The side flares are matched. You can see it in higher quality on our YouTube channel. Now, one of the things I want to talk about, and I'll put some of these notes that I have in the description as I mentioned, but with the base coat, a couple of things to mention. The temperature range is pretty important. Really, you can paint anywhere between 55 to 90, but there's kind of a sweet spot there in the middle. As I mentioned, low humidity is great. Also, if you're painting, don't do it outside if you can help it. Be inside a garage like ours. You don't want direct sunlight to be coming down on it. Of course, you have debris and things that are flying around outside, so it could stick to it. So clean garage, well ventilated is always the best way to do it. As far as where to paint, you guys saw what I was doing with the primer. I had it up on an elevated surface. I had the can about 6 to 8 inches away and then layering the sprays about 50% or doing my best job to do that, making sure not to overspray. And starting with light coats, then you can get a little bit more thick afterwards, but you'll kind of get a feel for it as you work. The other big thing is wait for 5 to 10 minutes between coats. You don't want to be applying even thin coats way too often. In my case, with the base coat, I'm going to do 2, maybe 3. And so we can get it all done between that primer curing and then the coats. Within the next hour or so, we'll start to see what the end result looks like, and then we'll move on to our clear after that. Back at the scoop, I'm seeing that the primer is pretty much dry. There's a little bit of a glisten to it, which tells me it's at about that 90% when we should be applying our base coat. Now, what I'm going to do to start is a light spray, and then we're going to get thicker with subsequent coats. But one thing to mention as far as technique, try and keep the can as vertical as you can. You don't want to be spraying downwards because you're going to get intermittent air blowing through. So I'm going to start with this. Let's put on the first coat and see how it turns out. I'm overall happy with this first coat. I did go a little heavy in the center, but otherwise I did do a pretty good dust coating all the way around. You can still see the primer through it. That's exactly what we want for the first one. So what I'm going to do is wait about 5 to 10 minutes between coats. We'll put on a second. We'll see if we need a third, and we should be good to wait for it to dry and do the clear right afterwards. Coat number 2 is now on and dry, and you can see I went significantly thicker for the second one, and it's turning out really good so far. We could probably call it quits here, but I think I'm gonna throw a third coat on, especially because I wanna get into some of these crevices on the hood scoop in particular. It's a little bit tough to get into the corners, so I've been doing my best to get to those. But overall, I'm super happy with how this is turning out. We're gonna put on this third coat, let it dry, and then we're gonna move on to the clear coat. Well, here you have it. My third coat of base color is already dry, and it looks really, really nice. I'm hoping you guys can see it through the camera. Now, there's some minor imperfections, and that's in the hood scoop itself. I could have done a little bit of a better job sanding, and it's kind of a you live, you learn type lesson. But at the same time, this is going on an 02, 03 bug eye, so there's going to be imperfections throughout. The paint itself turned out awesome. Now, next step for me is going to be applying a clear coat, and I want to show you the 3 different ones we have. Now, this one's the 1K clear. It's the standard thing you would use for interior parts. It doesn't have UV protection. It doesn't have a built-in hardener. It's the cheapest one, as you could have guessed. We don't want to use it for exterior parts. It's got its time and place, but not today. The 2 selections that we have are 2K clears. Now, the Spray Max right here, you can see it has a little red cap. You pull that out, it's got this portion here that you would pop in, and that mixes a hardener. Now that is great, but the downside is you have only 48 hours to use it. That means if you're gonna use the can up, go with this one. It's a little bit cheaper than the other option, but if you're not going to use the whole can, you might want to go with the car rep option that we have. Now this has the hardener mixed in internally and it activates as you spray. So in other words, when you're done spraying, if you still have half the can left, you can save it indefinitely for another project. That's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to use the car rep for our purposes. It's a little bit more expensive than the Spray Max, but we're going to be able to keep it around the shop and do the next small part just like this hood scoop. So now all that's left to do it, shake it up and lay 1 or 2 coats of clear on top of the hood scoop. While I'm shaking this can of clear, I want to mention that both the primer and clear cans have directions on the back with a little visual, so it's worth checking out. In this case, I've been having to shake this for 3 minutes, not 1 like you would do with more standard aerosols, and then it shows a bit of a pattern and also specifications like how many minutes to spend between coats, in this case 5 for the clear. It also says a max of 3 coats. So make sure to read those directions, don't just jump into it or absolutely take our word as gospel. You want to read all the instructions and all the things you're going to be using for a project. I've waited about 5 minutes on that first coat of clear, so it's time to apply the second one. Now, one thing I want to mention is, especially with the clear, you want a nice ventilated area. I ended up opening the door because it's a lot nicer outside, so the temps are actually there. You can see how much nicer and shinier this looks. This is awesome right here with a secondary coat and maybe a little bit of buffing at the end. We can get it to look like a professional part. So what I'm going to do is put the second coat on. I'm going to let it dry overnight, and then tomorrow we're going to be able to throw it on our bug eye hood, see how it looks, and then give you guys the takeaways from this whole experience that we've been working on.
The next day.
We're back on Monday. Now I get a chance to see the scoop all dry, and it looks awesome, really professional as far as an amateur can do. I'm happy with this. I'm going to pat myself on the back, and then I'm going to do a moment of truth to see how well it matches with the hood. Now, overall, I am super happy with how it came out. The only asterisk is you got to remember this hood is 24 years old. It's been in Midwest summers and winters. The clear is all faded. If you really wanted to do it right, you would repaint the entire hood along with the scoop, and you can do that. Now, last time I had the entire thing painted like this on one of my project cars, it cost me over $1,000 at the paint shop. You can do it for a fraction of the cost doing it yourself. And at the end of the day, it's a really fun weekend, and you get this end result that you can be proud of like I am. There's a couple of things in the videos I was editing that I would have done a little bit different. I did mention holding the cans more vertically. There were times when I went a little too far over, and really that's because of my painting surface. It was so big, so I would recommend just getting it a little bit smaller. You can be more direct with that, and just doing the full strokes along the entire panel. There were some that I was too short on. I would have gone the full way across just to help blend things. Now, even with those mistakes, I would say for an amateur like me, this turned out pretty damn good. So hopefully it gives you guys confidence in being able to do it yourself at home. Now, the thing we didn't really go over in depth, but I did mention, is all of these color selections, the 17 base colors, the 3 primers and clears right here. This is stuff that we've created for you guys to be able to really purchase aftermarket parts, whether it's side skirts, whether it's aftermarket scoops, and be able to do a good job at home yourself and kind of customize yourself. Now, on a product like this, truthfully, the margins are not that great for us. So when you guys are buying this stuff, this is more of a thank you to you to have such a wide selection of these paints. While you're on OVERTAKEUSA.com picking up some of these, do us a favor, grab some other Overtake parts, throw them in the cart, and you guys can do an overhaul on your car when you get these delivered. So if you guys enjoyed this video, please leave some comments down below, like it, make sure you're following at OVERTAKE USA on YouTube, on Instagram, on TikTok, all our social medias, and we'll see you in the next video.